Hello there and welcome to Canned Sanity. Today we're going to be making one of my favorite soups to preserve, tomato soup with fresh herbs and lemon. Now this is a fantastic soup to make when you have a vegetable garden and you're growing things like celery, carrots, garlic and tomatoes because it uses all of them. And when your tomatoes are producing like gangbusters, you'll be happy to have this recipe. So let's get started. Okay, so let's talk ingredients. The main ingredient, tomatoes. You can use any of your fresh garden tomatoes for this recipe. And so what I have here is some Cascade tomatoes and one of my new favorite tomatoes, Genovese. It's a beautiful heirloom tomato and it's just bursting with flavor. And I love the beautiful color that you get with this tomato as well, so it just gives a really nice brightness to the soup. Okay, so the next ingredient I want to talk about is basil. I grow basil in my garden and I do consecutive planting, so I have basil throughout the summer and into the fall. And when you pick it fresh, which I did today, you can put it in a jar, and if you're not going to use it up right away, you can just put a bag over top of it, create a little bit of a greenhouse effect, and it'll stay fresh on your counter for a couple of days. Just remember to change out the water every day. Okay, let's talk about the other ingredients. You're going to need 1 cup of chopped celery. Now, I grow celery in my garden, and one of the reasons why I grow celery in my garden is so that I can use it in soups like this and preserve that flavor for the winter. And so celery is an excellent plant to grow in your garden because it really, once you plant it, it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. It likes water, but you do need to start your celery in February because it does take a long time for the plant to grow to maturity. And but as you can see, it's a nice dark color and it's just got a ton of beautiful flavor. So it's worth growing if you're going to get into canning, or if you are into canning, it's great to have it right at your fingertips. Okay, so the other ingredient that you're going to need is carrots, and you're going to need to have 2 1/4 cup chopped, and that's about, if you were to buy a bunch of fresh carrots, that's about a bunch like this chopped. If you buy the farmer's carrots that are in the bags, they're a lot thicker, and you can usually get away with just 2 really large carrots. You know, I grow carrots in my garden, and it's just another way to preserve that beautiful garden fresh flavor is to use your garden fresh carrots in this recipe. Okay, so you're also going to need 4 cups of chopped onion. And I like to use just the regular cooking onion. You could use Spanish onion, but I just like the flavor of the cooking onion. And so you'll need 4 cups of chopped onion. Okay, you'll also need to put in garlic. Garlic is the best flavoring, I think, that you could possibly put in soups. And so I love that it is in this soup. And you're going to use 6 whole cloves minced for this soup. Okay, for the flavorings, you're going to need to put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You're going to have a 1/4 cup of butter, unsalted butter, added to the pot as well. And 4 teaspoons of kosher salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Oh, and also the lemon zest. Now the lemon zest, you can put it in and it's going to give that a really intense lemon flavor. If you want just the lemon flavor but not for it to be so intense, you could leave the lemon zest out. But you're going to need 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. Okay, now this is an important ingredient. In order for your tomato soup to be shelf stable after canning, you have to put in the acidity. And tomatoes range in acidity, so you can't bank on them having enough acidity for this to be shelf stable, so you have to add lemon juice. And in this recipe, it's 3/4 cup of strained fresh lemon juice, or you could use bottled lemon juice. If you use the bottled lemon juice, it's going to have a much more intense flavor. Okay, so when I'm making the soup, I want to make sure that I get the most out of my day, and so I usually make 2 or 3 batches of the soups so that I can just get all this soup prepared in one day. And so I wanted to do this video for you, and I wanted it to go rather quickly, and so I've already done the 2 batches of soup. And I haven't added the last ingredient, which is the basil, but I'm going to start cooking that 3rd batch of soup and show you how that's done as I make the soup. Okay, let's get cooking. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the pot. Add the butter. That's 1/4 cup of butter, or 2 ounces. And let that just heat up. Okay, now we're going to add the 4 cups of chopped onion, the 2 1/4 cup of chopped carrots, 1 cup of celery chopped. There's a little bit of celery top in there too. It's got nice flavor, so you don't feel free to add that. And then 6 cloves of garlic minced. Now you're going to get this to start. It's going to come up to a cook. Okay, now we have all those beautiful ingredients in there, and we're just going to give that a stir. And this is going to, you're going to get this simmering and frying, and then you're just going to turn your heat down to medium low even, and you're just going to cook that out for 20 minutes. Okay, again, I have Cascade tomatoes in here and the Genovese, and there's 10 pounds that I'm just rinsing off here. And you know, the Genovese is just beautiful. It has this, because it's an heirloom tomato, it's not perfect, but in the soup it doesn't matter. Like, don't worry about cutting these parts out, because you're going to run the soup through a food mill to discard all the solids before you cook it, give it its final cook. So I love making this soup because you really could just take the tomato and break it apart like that and put it in your pot. You don't even really need a knife. I mean, I take out the greens just because I don't want the flavor of the stem, but other than that, you can just rip that tomato apart. And you know, it's just, this is a beautiful tomato for making this soup. And then for the Cascade, all I do is really just roughly chop it and put it in the pot. So you're going to do that for all the tomatoes that you have here. Okay, now the 20 minutes is up, and you can see that that's cooked nicely. And now we're going to add our tomatoes. So this is our 10 pounds of beautiful tomatoes. And the juices are at the bottom. And you're going to add your 2 tablespoons of sugar and your 4 teaspoons of kosher salt. Give that a stir. Really turn it up. And you're going to turn your element back up to high. And you're going to get this to a boil, and then turn it down to a simmer. And then once it's simmering, Then you're gonna set your timer for another 20 minutes. Okay, so we're just going to use a food mill here with a medium blade in there to remove the peel and the solids and the seeds. So it's just a handy tool. I'm just going to turn this, just let it drip it. This is how a food mill works. You just turn it and it just presses the juice through and some of the fine solids. So you can really load it up. Turn it. Do a little bit of an arm workout. It's not hard, but just it's repetitive. Okay, so I ran everything through the food mill, and that's all the solids. So that's the 10 pounds of tomatoes, the 4 cups of onions, the 1 cup of celery, the 2.5 cups of carrots that are just cooked down and then run through the food mill. So I could keep going and I get a little bit more drips, like you can hear that I'll get some more if I keep going, but I'm really not going to get that much more, maybe a couple of tablespoons if I keep going. I don't want to keep going too long because I don't want to grate this through. It's supposed to be a soup, but there's a little bit of solid up the bottom, so you can give it a scrape and put that into your soup. But I would just leave it at that. And so I'll discard that to the compost, and that's our beautiful soup. Now, this still needs to be reduced. So you want to put this on your stovetop and bring it up to a boil, then bring it down to a simmer and simmer it for 45 minutes. You should get about 10 cups of soup after you do that. Now we'll have to add the last ingredients, but right now we have to put this on the stove and cook it for another 45 minutes. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my soup to come, the tomatoes and the carrots and the celery and all of that to come to a boil so that I can turn it down to a simmer, I'm going to can one of the soups that I made earlier in the day. And so I got to the point where I pressed the tomato mixture through a food mill, and this is what I had left after I cooked that for 45 minutes. Now, so because it cooled, you have to bring this up to a full boil again and boil it for about 5 minutes before you add the last ingredients, which would be your 3/4 cup of strained lemon juice, your 2 tablespoons of lemon zest, and your 1 cup of slivered basil. Now, while I'm waiting for this to come up to a boil, I started my canning pot, so that it would get up to a full boil. And because once I put my soup in the hot jars, I want this to be ready to go. And so you want to make sure that this is ready to go when you add your soup to your jars. Okay, so this is after the soup has been run through the food mill and cooked for 45 minutes. And now it's been, I've reheated it to boiling. And so now it's ready to for the flavorings, the last flavorings. So 2 tablespoons of lemon zest, and then 1 cup of the basil, and last but not least, you're going to add your freshly squeezed and strained lemon juice, and that's 3/4 cup. Very important ingredient. Keeps your soup shelf stable. So now you can just shut off your heat and now fill your jars and put them in your water bath. Okay, so I have my hot jars that were run through the dishwasher, and then I put them in a 225-degree Fahrenheit oven for 10 minutes to sterilize them. And then I have my funnel, a spoon to stir, my ladle, and my magnetic wand to sitting in boiling hot water. And so I'm going to take my funnel out, and then I'm going to just start filling my jars. And you want to get your hot soup into the hot jars. You don't want things to cool down. And you're going to fill this to a 1/2 inch headspace. Now the headspace is very important. If you have too little headspace or too much, you're going to, it's possible that the jars won't seal, so that 1/2 inch headspace is important. And if you're not sure where that is on your jar, then get a ruler and measure. And I will do that just before I put the snap lids on. Yeah, looks like I'm not going to have enough to fill that jar, so I'm just going to check my headspace on the jars that I have filled. So I have a ruler here, and I'm going to measure the headspace. Start here on this part, and that's it. So I always put a spoon in my boiling water to sterilize it in case I have to do this, and take a little bit out, and I did. Okay, so now you have to wipe down your rims. And I usually just take a piece of paper towel and I dip it in boiling hot water, and then I just run the rims. If there is a seed or some sauce on that rim, this could affect your seal, so this is important too, to make sure you wipe down your rims. And now I will take my snap lids and I will measure, or sorry, I'll count out 5, so that's all I have to process. I'll put them in the boiling hot water for just 30 seconds, just to soften the seal a bit. The rings I sterilize along with the jars in the 225-degree oven, and turn and just fingertip tight. Just a fingertip tight, because the process, water bath processing, is the purpose is to get the air out of the jars, and so you want the pressure to be such that that will happen. And if you have a dent in your ring, it could affect your seal. So check your rings before you wash and sterilize them to make sure that there's no dents. So these are ready to go into the water bath. Okay, my water bath is at a full rolling boil. That's where you want it to be when you're adding your jars. And so then I'm just going to use my jar lift and place my jars in gently, and give them about 1 inch space and apart and 1 inch away from the wall of the pot. And then you always want to have 1 inch of water above your jars as well. And I will boil that for 35 minutes. Okay, so my timer just went off, and so I'm just going to shut the element off. And I'm going to set my timer now for another 5 minutes and leave the lid on and just let the leave the jars in there for another 5 minutes, but the element is off. Okay, so the reason why you shut off the stove and you leave the lid on and leave them in the pot for 5 minutes is to reduce the siphoning that would happen, the vacuum, when you take them out of the water. And because it's quite liquid in this jar, you want to definitely do that. So we've done that. Now I'm going to take the lid off and just take the jars out and grab them by the neck. Don't worry about the water on top, it'll evaporate. Don't want to tilt the jars. Now I use a canning mat at the bottom of this water bath. Oh, there's one snap already. That's what you want to hear. You want to hear the lids pop. Sometimes you don't hear them, but you want them to go down. That will be proof that it's sealed. Anyways, I was saying that I have a canning mat at the bottom of this pot, and I really like using it. There's another one, because it's just really easy to get the jars in. And you see that as it processed for 35 minutes, the jars did slide over a little bit. That's okay. Okay, that's our 5 jars, and we're just waiting for the last one to seal. Okay, since I'm going to be processing another 2 batches tonight, I know I'm going to need more water, so I'm going to add it now while there's some time between the batches. And I'm just going to add 6 more cups just to make sure that I have enough water to go over top for the next batch. And do it now, and then preheat your water so that you need this water to be at a full rolling boil when you add your next batch of jars. And so I'm just giving you this tip to add the water and preheat the water again, because if you just tried to add that much water over top of the jars, once you put your jars in, you'd be waiting an awfully long time before it came up to a boil again. Okay, so all 5 of my jars sealed. Yay! And now all I have to do is process that other 2 batches of soup, and then I'll have 17 jars of summer goodness. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that if you are enjoying our CanSanity videos, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to go to cansanity.com and check out this recipe and all the other fantastic recipes that are waiting there for you. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.